Over the years, I have watched Joe Warmington work a story, and there is none better. Me, perhaps, but I am out of that game now. So Joe's unrivaled. He has been hip deep in the Shafia quadruple murder trial in Kingston since the outset. And he joins us now from Kingston, as he's done on many occasions for Sun News. Hey, Joe, guilty or not guilty? What's your gut say?
I think they're coming down with 3 counts of first-degree murder, and I think they'll do it on Sunday. And I think it's just as well that you're not here, because you being so close to your daughter, Erin, and how you reacted to what happened to her a few years ago, I don't think you can handle this. I think that they'd have to have extra security for you, Bones.
Well, I'll tell you what, go back to my daughter. My daughter wasn't murdered, that's for sure, but she was swarmed by a bunch of teenage kids and beaten up pretty badly. But I know what you're saying. The Crown went out through this thing step by step, methodically. And when I heard the defense counsel say there's no, it's all smoke and mirrors, I sort of rolled my head, because I've been watching this closely, and it looks like they were methodical, put every piece of the chain together, because as we all know, it's circumstantial evidence, and it's as strong as its weakest link. I think they got a pretty strong chain.
Oh, they have a very strong case, and we could talk about it more freely now that the jury is deliberating.
Now, what do you hear?
What they have.
Was there anything that they didn't tell, the jury was avoided to tell, that was a real blockbuster?
The only thing that in my view, and we still can't talk about it by court order, is the fact that there's other people in this family, and I can't say who they are, survivors, if you will. But other than that, no, they've got this case right down. I mean, you have people admitting that they were there. You've got computer searches to talk about how to commit a murder, where to commit a murder. You've got all this crazy evidence of a convoluted story down at this lock. You've got the most amazing testimony of the intercepts, Mark, where they actually talk about, the daughters in terms of being whores and having the devil defecate on their graves, and that the right thing happened, and they're glad that they're dead. And so you've got everything but the smoking gun.
Well, you sort of do have a smoking gun, Joey. You got the car that they used to push the other car into the canal, do we not?
They do, and the story that they've tried to concoct here, the defense is doing its job and trying to present a defense, but it's just nonsensical to think that there was an accident, and then the young man, Hamid, goes down, bends on his hands and knees, picks up the debris from the broken light, and then all of a sudden he sees this car drive into the lock. He then runs down there, grabs a rope out of his car, and dangles the rope down, in case anybody just happens to be swimming down there. And then that's why he dropped the remnants of the light at the lock, and that's why they found it there. Just a coincidence. It's almost embarrassing in a way to watch it. It's infuriating.
Well, you look at the jury. I mean, when I'm in these places, I look at the jury. I try to size them up. I try to see if there's any weak link on the jury. I mean, this is a Kingston crowd. I would take it they're all white, all sort of middle-aged middle earners in Kingston area. Do you see any tells on their faces?
You know what? It's a good point. There's one visible minority on the jury, and it's clearly a second or third generation person that is from Kingston. And you're right. This is a jury that's very attentive. The mistake that the Shafia has made, if they are found guilty of this, and it's still before the courts, and we'll see what happens, but is to think that somehow Kingston's this place where people aren't very smart. For example, when this accident happened, the son reported an accident back in Montreal to cover up for the light, and somehow didn't think Kingston police would connect this. So right off the bat, his very first interview, he doesn't mention that he reported an accident earlier in the day in Montreal. And so, the idea that somehow people in Kingston can't figure something out. This is the home of Queen's University and RMC and lots of smart people, and some of them are on that jury.
Yeah, I don't doubt they're smart people, and I don't think anybody ever thought that they weren't. It's just that it's a small town, and I think you got a better shot of conviction on these sort of things in a small town than say you held the trial in Montreal or in Toronto or Vancouver. I just think there's small town sensibilities. I don't think all the doors are locked in Kingston as they are in Toronto. I grew up in a small town, Joe, and so did you. And you know that there's a difference between small town Canada and the big cities.
You know what, I agree with you to a point, but I think that, you know, in this case, it's so heinous, the allegations. You got 3 sisters, all teens, and, you know, a 4th woman who was their stepmom. And I just think that murder is murder, and people in any city would be able to come to some kind of conclusion to protect these women and to offer some justice.
I agree. But, you know, there's also now CNN's picked up on this story as though it's the first honor-killing murder alleged in Canada, when we know for a fact, Joe, and you covered a couple of them, there's been about 13 in Canada where honor killing and honors for the family have been the reasons behind these murders. So it's not a one-offer.
In fact, this is an epidemic, and this is the thing that Prime Minister Harper and his cabinet is going to have to deal with as soon as this verdict is rendered, and it should be this weekend. The very next day, they have to have an emergency meeting, and they have to discuss this and get a report written immediately, because we cannot let this happen again. And this happened because all kinds of people did not want to understand that it was happening. These young women went to the authorities, they went to the police, they went to the social services, and nobody bloody listened to them. And so then they're dead, and now everybody's here. We're spending millions of dollars here on this trial. I can't go in there because there's so much bloody security. They want you to take this off and take that off, and yet this is what goes on. And so you're absolutely right. It's a disgrace to think this doesn't happen. I covered Aksa Parvez as well, and that was the case in Mississauga, and her father and brother are now serving time for it. Honor murders happen, and for people to put their head in the sand and say they don't, you're a disgrace as well, because we have to protect these women, and it's our responsibility as a country to do it. And so hopefully they'll listen to this and they'll deal with this Monday. If they don't, they're no bloody good, and they're no good for anything. That's our job, to protect people.
Okay, Joe, thank you very much.
That's
Maybe some good thing will come out of this. Maybe there'll be a Shafia law, like a Christopher's law that was enacted years ago, something to stop it all. That was Bono Warmington coming to us from Kingston, Ontario, at the scene of the Shafia trial.